hey, if you're brand new to steel guitar, this is a good video for you to watch. If you've been playing for a little while, or you've been kind of dabbling with it and you want to get more serious, maybe you've been frustrated by, you know, your lack of progress, and you're looking for inspiration, for technique, and that kind of thing. This is probably a good video, and might help point you in some directions. When I think about playing steel guitar, I think about three different, playing steel guitar or any instrument for that matter. There's a mental component, there's a musical component, and there's a physical component. And somewhere in there you could argue like emotions and expressing, I think when we're learning it, that those are the three main things. Most of the emotions that are involved in learning the thing is just frustration and this thing doesn't work, let's throw it out. At any rate, I like to start with the physical, the movement type. And when you think about learning steel guitar, if you can't pick the strings to make them vibrate, then you can't make the sound. And likewise, if you can't get the strings to stop making sound when you need them to stop at the exact moment by muting with your palm or muting with your finger picks or your other hand, there's many ways to mute. If you can't do the physical movements necessary, then you'll never sound how you want to sound. And so I put an emphasis on trying to master those physical movements. And this coaching session that I do here with Matt, we're going to start with that process. This is the first coaching session I've done with Matt. And basically, he's interested in learning the steel guitar to the point where he could, confidently be able to be hired as a side guy to do, Leon McAuliffe style steel guitar. And that's a very beautiful thing, and great swing music and music of Bob Wills is wonderful music, gets people dancing. But in order to get to that point, we've got to make those strings start vibrating. And so we kind of take a look at sort of where he's at and his goals, and then immediately we start jumping into some rudimentary, some first exercises that we can do with our picking hand and bringing those across the strings. We talk a little bit about pick muting and a little bit about palm muting. So please enjoy this coaching session. If there's something in the session that you don't understand, or you feel like needs to get expounded on, or the camera angles aren't right, I will say that the camera angles kind of screwed up, and some of the cameras were freezing during the recording, which was not particularly helpful. So if you need something re-explained or something didn't quite make sense, please leave a comment, or shoot me an email and say, hey, I just didn't really understand this. Is there a way we could get another video, or would you be able to take the time to maybe write something out? I'd be more than happy to do that when I get a moment. So please enjoy this session with Matt. Thanks for watching. Yeah, play a little bit. Sweet. Okay, so I know you just got this thing. What have you been able to either figure out, or I know you were saying you were messing with the tone knob a little bit.
Yeah, I've just been kind of figuring out keys, mostly keys, and I guess just like jamming out to I've been using like backing tracks, just like jam out to.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So I see you're on the middle neck there, and I believe if you didn't change the tunings, that's probably tuned to E6. Is that right?
I think I changed this one C6.
Oh, okay. What do you have it tuned up to?
C6.
That one's C6.
I think the top one I changed to E6, C6, and A6.
Okay, so you've got all variations on the 6 tuning.
Yeah.
Cool. There's one thing that I will hip you to later, not probably during this one, um, there's a way to basically take a guitar with the same string gauges. So, like for example, I'll change my camera here. Um, so, like for example, I have C6 here. You know, but I can all the same gauges. If I want to play A6, A6 uses an E on the top, and this C6 tuning has an E on the top. So I could change a couple of strings. If I change so if I'm in C6 now and I wanted to get A6, I could change the C's to C sharp and the G's to F sharp. And then now all of a sudden I have an A6 tuning and I didn't have to change my strings around at all. So that's one of the benefits of uh, when you figure out your string gauges and you can kind of learn to tune by ear a little bit. Um, you can leave like something dedicated to like an E13. So I don't have the camera on it, but I'll play my outside neck out here, and that's you can get that. You can do those types of things on those other tunings. Um, Now that being said, if you want to have all 6 tunings at your disposal, um, by all means, it's totally fine to have those. Where was my other? This one here. So, just real quick to talk about them, since you happen to have all 3 of them tuned up there. So, most of what you would have heard Don Helms play was on an E6 tuning with a G sharp on the top. So it's got a real thin gauge. It's going to sound bright and chimey, and it would have all of the same degrees of the scale as your typical C6. So if you play, you said the outside one was tuned to E6.
Yeah, I think it's
you've got E6 on the outside, C6 in the middle, and A6 close to you.
Yeah.
So play the top string on your, play it on that outside string. Just play the top string. Now play the top string on your middle one. Now play the top string here on the close one. Well, you've got them all tuned to E. Is that right?
Yeah.
All the same note?
Well, I think the top one's sharp or flat.
Right. Well, I'm hearing that, but I guess what I'm getting at is it's relatively the same pitch. So you can have E6 tuned that way, where you have E on the top, the root note. The way Don would have played it. Oh, that makes way more sense now, because that one was E13 when I tuned it up. And usually when people play E13, sometimes they'll have the E on the top and not the G sharp.
Yeah.
But I think I had the middle one tuned to E6. I think that's what Dickie had it tuned to. It doesn't matter that you have it as C6, but it kind of blows up my demonstration. That's all good. Basically, you can kind of think of it like this: the intervals. Let me just write it on a piece of paper. So you can see. Demo. So when you have E6, usually people will have. So when you're talking about these 6 tunings, right? Basically, oh shoot, I screwed this up. Forget about that part. basically you only have 4 different tones of the scale. You have the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 6, and they're all basically put in different consecutive orders when people will tune something up to a 6th tuning, generally speaking. So that usually they'll be like the next note within the scale or the 6th chord. And there's generally 2 ways people do it with a an E6. Don't look at this part. This part's the bad part. And then there's so people will tune them like this when they have 8 strings. Okay. So essentially what you have here, in the key of E, the E is the root note, right? And so when people tune them up, they might have the E on the top, or they'll have the G sharp. Right now, you have it tuned like this.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a G sharp on the bottom. Some people like to put another root on the bottom. So it just kind of depends. Some people will take this 5 and they'll make it the G sharp. They'll put the 3 there. They'll kind of rearrange these bottom notes because you don't really play them as often. And like there might be a certain instrumental that you want to, tune it up to or whatever. This is what I want to draw your attention to. When you think about each note as which degree of the scale it is, you kind of get this setup right here. And if you translate these numbers into the key of C, this tuning right here, where you have the 3 on the top, that's generally what you're going to have with C6. So let me get another piece of paper here. And with this one, I'll write out another situation. And I'm just demonstrating this so you can just kind of see a little bit of the relationship between all the different 6 tunings. And you can just kind of like begin to understand how they're the same and why you might want one versus another one. Okie doke. So on this side, I'll write C6. So we'll do C6. And this one will be A6 here. All right. All right. I don't know if you can kind of see this, but I sort of tried to draw it in such a way where you can see the relationships between these different things. So
same thing. You've got your C6 right now. Now you have your C6 like this. Where you've got the E on the top. Now, some people will tune it with the G on the top and then you lose the G on the bottom. Or maybe you have a pedal steel guitar and so you have the G on the top for the first 8 and then you get to here and then you might put an F and an A and a C. You know, they'll change the bottom notes because they've got certain things that they want them to do, or it's maybe linked to a pedal. But most of what you're going to play is on the top 5 strings anyways. So this is the meat, and this is generally going to stay consistent between all tunings.
Yeah.
And so you could tune a C, guitar to this G, and then you can imagine that if you had an E6 tuning where you had the G sharp on top, and then you said, you know what, let me rechange this real quick to this one right here with the G tuning. You could see that you'd only need to change, you need to change 3 strings. And A to B might be a stretch depending on what string you had strung up on there. But it'd be more realistic for you to go from G to G sharp than it would be to go from E to G sharp. You might need to change the strings, is all I'm getting at. Here's the cool thing with A6 and C6 is this version of C6 that you have strung up currently can easily get retuned to this version of A6. And most people play A6 because the 5 is on the top. And that helps with melody work. Generally speaking, when you talk about the differences between A6, C6, and E6, when you listen to the Hank Williams Don Helms sound, Don has this really bright and chimey characteristic tone. You're like, that's the thing. It's just like in your face, and it's like, how does he get that tone? It's because he's playing way up on the neck, and he's using really thin gauge strings for all of those melody notes, because he's got one gauge thinner on the very top. He doesn't have this E, is the G sharp for his E6. So that's how you can think of it. E6 is bright and chimey. A6, we're using these, and like everything's tuned down a little bit lower, and it's a lot of more of your melodies and things are going to be playing on wound strings. So you can think of it as like a beefier, meatier type of a tuning with, again, access to the 5, which can be helpful for when you're trying to play single note melodies. And then you can think of C6 as kind of an in-between. It's a balance. If you have the G on there, it's going to sound brighter. But if you just have this E on the top, which is usually what everybody plays, it's just kind of that medium sound, a little bit of best of both worlds. So that's kind of a little primer on your different tunings. Now going back to the E6 one, the one that you have tuned up, this one here on the right, this one's very easy to change back and forth between an E13. Well, I mean, you could change either of them between an E6 and an E13. There's only 2 or 3 strings that you're going to change. You're going to change this lower down E. You're going to change that up to an F sharp probably, and this C sharp is probably going to go to a D. Now all of a sudden you have an E13 tuning of some kind. And you didn't have to change much at all, So, just bear that in mind, that you can easily go from this kind of thing over to the other one. And sometimes you might want the root to be the top note. For instance, this tuning, whatever tuning you have on that last one right now, that's the exact tuning with this E on the bottom. this one. That's the exact tuning that Santo and Johnny played Sleepwalk in. It's that one right there.
E6.
E6, or you can think of it as C sharp minor 7. Because you can play that entire song on 6 strings without the 7s. And you have to change one little thing, but I think he played it that way anyways. So he was skipping some strings when he played it in C sharp minor, but you can, again, think of C sharp minor 7 as E6. It all kind of comes down to chronology of Hawaiian tunings. Anyways, that's kind of how they're the same. So a lot of what you might learn on, say, A6 with your 5 on the top, you just have to kind of get used to saying, oh, okay, well now I have to skip a string. So all of the stuff that I played here, I can now do 3 frets back, but then, I have to do on strings 2, 3, and 4 instead of 1, 2, and 3. You start to learn those types of relationships. I won't dive into that too much today because that could, turn your brain to tapioca. You know what I'm saying? It does for me, but it's good that you're working on, trying to get your keys straight. Figure out, okay, I'm in an E-based tuning. Where's my 4 chord? Where's my 5 chord? What is that? Oh, that's A. Or that's, where's my, if you're taking your C6 neck, you're saying, okay, C's at 12 here. Where's C on E6 out here? Where's C on my A6 back here? Learning those, thinking of your entire instrument as one instrument instead of this is one and this is another one and this is another one. It's all together. So when you say, okay, where's C6? You would have C6 in the open, and then you might also have C6 up here. At your 8th fret on your E6 neck, and then at your 3rd fret on your A6 neck. All right, before we jump in on me showing you some exercises and stuff, let's talk a little bit about, I know you probably, you were interested in steel guitar. Like, what in your mind, is it something that you just want to dabble in? Is it something that you want to see how far you can kind of take it? Like, talk to me a little bit about what you see and what your ambitions are for learning steel guitar. Like, paint the picture of, like, in 5 years from now, what would you like to be doing with steel guitar?
Mostly just like Liam McAuliffe stuff. So just like, I guess like nothing that crazy, but just like being able to jam out.
So being able to jam out, okay. Is it the kind of thing where, like, you'd want to be able to take gigs? You'd want to play it on your own gigs? You see someone like Dave Tanner or Chris Scruggs or Chris Casello, and these are all guys that, like, they'll come in, they'll play some lead guitar, they'll switch over to steel guitar, maybe even in the middle of a song. They'll bring both of them out. Is it that kind of thing? Is it the kind of thing that you would want to get a call from somebody else to be able to play?
Probably get a call from. If I was to play steel, I would do it as a solo instead of doing both. I think just watching Chris. I mean, he can make good transitions, but
it's a lot of responsibility within the within the song,
yeah,
and to bring to a gig. Okay, so it sounds like being able to be called as a side guy for somebody else's gig would eventually be a goal for you, or is a goal, but you're not necessarily in a hurry to try and get there.
Pretty much.
You were saying Leon McAuliffe, so it sounds like Western swing.
Yeah.
Is ultimately kind of a style that you're trying to get going with.
That and Kind of like, yeah, just like that 60s, like asleep at the wheel sound,
Okay.
or 80s. But,
Yeah, kind of when they were doing their sort of revival of, hey, let's take this younger crowd and try and breathe new life in this
yeah.
Texas swing kind of music. All right, well, cool. I think we can definitely help with that. Um, starting out on this thing is like, before you get too genre specific, you got to figure out how you're making sounds on the thing and where, you know, uh, if your right hand can't pick it out and mute it and do all the things that it needs to do, then just you won't be able to play it. And same thing once you start involving the left hand. It's like if your left hand can't do this thing, then you'll never be able to play the passage or the lick for the song you're trying to learn. So I try to generally speaking, focus on the movements first. Um, Make sure that you have the physical facility and you're starting to feel like you can kind of work your way around the guitar. Um, and it sounds like you were getting a decent sound when you were playing a little bit earlier, so that's good. Um, in your experimenting so far, have you had any hangups, or do you have any questions, or have you know, what are some of the obstacles that you've run into
Not really much other than like getting the hand muscles used to.
for the bar?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll be switching on. I need to find a smaller one. This is the only one I found out in the stores.
that one looks like a pedal steel size bar.
Yeah.
Um, they're totally fine. You can totally use them. I'll just show you for reference here. Let's see. All right. So I've got a couple of different bars here. Camera's at a little bit of a funny angle. Oh, it's all zoomed in too. Let's see. All right. So Dunlop makes bars in 3 different sizes. Now, 2 of these bars that I have here, the black one and the red one, are not Dunlop bars, but they they're they're the exact same size as the Dunlop bars. And um, this one on the right, the silver one, that's the pedal steel size one. And so you can see this one's a little bit longer, but it's thinner,
Yeah.
significantly thinner. And then there's this other one that I have, which is even shorter. And I'll show it relative to the black bar here. So that one's even shorter than the black bar. And the benefit of that, and I would actually recommend getting one of these size bars. This is a Jerry Bird sized bar. So if you look up Dunlop, Dunlop tone bars. I think it's called a 919. And the reason why it's popular, let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Is when you go to do a reverse slant, it's easier to hook you have to hook your thumb back behind the bar right here. And if the bar is longer, what happens is you have to hook your thumb even further back. Like you really have to crank it back to grab it. But if it's not as long, it's a lot easier to just kind of grab it and then be able to do that. Anyway, that being said, there's no reason that you can't reverse slant with a pedal steel bar or forward slant, but it is going to be heavier. And if you're trying to do things quickly, I kind of equate it to like swinging 2 bats at once, right? It might be, you know, a little heavier. Sometimes when I'm doing just left-hand exercises, I might use a pedal steel bar because I'm trying to, you know, basically work out my fingers. And this is going to force them to work a little bit harder, to do a little bit of strength training. So it doesn't hurt to have that bar, although it might be that you would want one of these Dunlop 919s. And again, it's not going to be red. This is a different type of bar that's a little bit tapered. I have no idea what kind it is, but it's the exact same size as that Dunlop one I was talking about. It's also referred to as the Jerry Bird sized bar. You can look up. And I use those almost exclusively, and I would always go back to them because, again, it happens to just cover the length of all 8 strings, and it made reverse slants that much easier. And just the fact that it's a little bit thinner and lighter, I felt like I could move quick, you know. And if I want to do bar slams and stuff, you know, it's easy to pick up with just this part of my hand, just a couple fingers. That makes sense. So something to think about for your tone bar.
You ever tried the glass ones?
I haven't personally tried a glass one, but I haven't needed one. This one's like I don't know. It seems like some sort of coated steel. I don't know. It seems like some sort of, you know, plasticky type polymer on the outside. But anyways, let's start with some right hand stuff. Let's give you some exercises. All right, so let's see. Man. Got one of these here. Set. There we go. Uh-oh. My camera froze up. Froze up. Well, shoot. I don't really know what I can do about that. I guess we're not going to look at that camera. Froze up. So instead, we've got this camera here. So we'll just have to make do as best we can. You got finger picks you use?
Yeah.
All right. You said you had some from Dobro or whatever. Yeah, I mean any old finger picks will work. You know, the way I say it is like try to play it with finger picks, try to play it without. You're gonna figure out what you like real soon, and you're gonna start to figure out, you know, manipulating the finger picks themselves to like find out how you want to set them up, how you want to wear them. But you know, coming from Dobro, you probably already have a decent idea of how you like them set up. So let's do this. All right. Okay, so I would start just by grabbing 3 consecutive strings. Maybe grab the bottom 3. And don't worry about using the bar for right now. Just grab the bottom 3 strings, give them a squeeze, make sure you got them. Yeah. And what you're going to do, what we're going to try to do is just play all 3 and then drop your hand back down like you're doing a palm mute. Now, ideally, oh man, I need to get this other camera to work. So you can actually see what's going on here. Let's see if I can make this work. Kind of need to see it. All right, I don't know if you can see from the small camera here, but what's going to happen is I'm just like picking my hand up very slightly and then putting it right back down. I'm not trying to go wham like this. So whatever position I have on the strings, I'm trying to just lift it and then drop it right back down. And when I drop my hand back down, I'm trying to be exactly where I'm going to pick the strings again. So I can go. Try to just do that. Yeah. And don't be afraid to like curl these two fingers. Like curl them under your hand there, and like it's okay if they're hitting the strings. They can rest on the strings. That's how you're gonna palm mute it. Is like those two fingers being a part of like, you know, the part of your hand that blocks stops the string from vibrating. Let's see if I can. Let's see what's going on here. Whoop. Try and blow this up a little bit. You see that a little bit better? I'll try and exaggerate. So. And you can see that I'm not going.
Yeah.
And these, like I said, these two fingers are going to curl. They curl underneath. And my hands are resting on the strings now. I guess I could even demonstrate out here, maybe. But they'll also hit the strings and be part of that, you know, part of the muting mechanism. If that makes any sense. And so when you're actually going, your hand, it's going to feel like it's kind of bouncing if you're palm muting. You know, it's going to feel like it's bouncing up and down off the strings, and you know you'll start to fine tune that, and it'll be a very minimal amount that you're actually taking your hand on and off of the strings as you're going. When you're practicing, going slow and being accurate and intentional is going to be your default. That's where you're going to want to default to. If you start to pick up the speed and then you become inaccurate, then you're just going to practice how to do it incorrectly. So you want to try to be intentional. Let's try this. You're going to grab 8, 7, and 6, so the bottom three. And then when you come back down, try to switch it to where you're one set of strings up, one grip of strings. 7, 6, 5. And then go to the next, yep, all the way across. And try to keep a steady tempo, whatever it is. So if I would advise maybe a little slower, just try to go. If you can do that. Start at the top and come back again. Something to pay attention to is like as we're doing this, you know, we're trying to work on whatever it is that we're like our passages and stuff. A lot of times, coming towards yourself like coming back across the strings this way will feel a lot different than going across the strings this way. And so something I've found in the last couple of years is like, for example, if I was going to do something like a forward roll, where I was going to go thumb 1, 2, and I'll just do it on strings 1, 2, and 3 right now. Like that's pretty easy to do. But then to go 2, 1 thumb, that's maybe a little less intuitive. It doesn't quite make as much sense. So just be aware that they're separate movements as you're trying to bring your limbs further away and then closer to the body. You might not need to practice it going, but you might need to practice it going the other way. Or, if your fingers are getting hung up on the strings. So, and if you get hung up at some point, again, just you can slow the tempo back down. It's no problem. Okay, so we're going to work on a couple of different things, which will be kind of your homework for next time. I'm going to show you that just 3 consecutive strings is one thing. And you're on C6 right now. I'm on C6. We're doing the same. We're now going to take just your thumb. So play one note with your thumb, and then just play a bunch of notes on just one string. What we'll do is we'll play one note on the thumb, and then we'll play the next string. And then try to play the next note. And the next one. There you go. So ideally what happens is just as you went and you played all 3 notes, you're going to do the same thing where you're going to move your hand, but you're only plucking with your thumb. But your other 2 fingers are ready to play, even though they're not.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And you're like, oh, this might take a little practice. So that's thinking about like anytime we have like strings in a certain we call them grips, like fingers are ready to play certain strings, that that's a specific grip. And you can play multiple kinds of passages, the exact same passage, but you can do it with different grips and with different fingers and different, you could pick it alternately. You could pick it with pick blocking. You could pick it with palm blocking. This is sort of your introduction to pick blocking as you go. Like I'm putting my pick down on the. Anytime you're just playing another string, if you play the same string again, that's pick blocking. So that'll be some homework. I'm going to give you basically the goal that I want you to be able to do by next week. I'm going to give you several exercises. I want you to be able to do them all. I want you to be able to go with the thumb. Take the thumb all the way across, walking, and being able to keep those grips. And now let's try the same thing. We got 2 more fingers we got to use. So, using this bottom grip here, try playing the 7th string with your index finger. picking that one just by itself. Pick it quickly, pick it slowly. Get used to stopping the sound when you stop the sound, and get used to being able to, and try to make sure that your finger's not getting stuck on other strings. And then, as you're once you feel good about that finger and it's all warmed up, then and you so on and so forth. Now you'll notice that if I start down here and I pick this string, I'm going to let it ring, and my thumb is actually the thing that's going to pick block it. But when I change strings or change grips, I'm going to let it ring. And the next finger is actually going to be the one that's going to block it. So I'm picking with my index finger, and then I'm moving my whole hand to catch the next one. And it continues the whole way up.
You're saying you're using the thumb to mute it?
Yeah, so got a zoomed in one of these. Okay. See if you can. Oh, it's got the other camera over there. It looks a little crazy. Hang on a second. Let me fix that. We got the camera. All right. What did I do with it? There it is. Got my little. So I hope you see the strings a little better. So what's happening is we're down here at the bottom. This is string 7 that I'm playing. I'll play it with the index finger, and then I move the whole hand, and the thumb blocks it. The thumb kick. You can see that. So it's like. But I've also grabbed all 3 of the next set of strings. Do that all the way across. And then when you're coming back, guess what? It's the opposite. Your third finger catches, or your second finger catches it. See, it's different going forward than it is back, right? And here's another thing you could do. So that's pick blocking. You could do the same exercise, but palm block. So if you look at the image on the left, you'll see that my hand is, my fingers are curled in, and you could, and even if I was actually putting those fingers on there, this part could be the part that's, and this is the part that's actually bouncing up and down. So there's many ways to block it. You're going to find in the beginning you should practice both ways, because what's going to happen is sometimes you're going to pick block, sometimes you're going to palm block. Every time I go to the Nashville steel guitar social thing, I always ask the steel guitar players that are playing gigs everywhere. I say, so which one do you do? Do you pick block or you palm block? And they're like, man, I don't really know, because I do them both. They don't really think about them. So you're going to want to learn both, and then naturally it's going to become a thing of muscle memory. And as you're learning passages, you just know how to make the sound stop when you need them to. So obviously the pick blocking is a little more technical in thinking about, okay, this finger's going to come down and block the next part. So when you're doing the thumb and you're going forward, this back part of the thumb is the thing that's actually stopping the string from flapping. So this part of my thumb right here. So it's not my palm because my palm's not down. And then, so when you're using the second, when you're using the thumb and you're coming back, the next finger will catch it. So this index finger's catching it when you're coming back for the pick block. And so the same idea happens when you use the index finger, is the thumb will catch it because it's the finger, the next finger. And then when you want to, what's that?
You ever do like a pinching?
Pinching?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like you're kind of twisting.
Is that? Are you saying that's like kind of the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about pinching, it's like when I'm actually playing more than one string. Are you saying you're doing this? You're playing the same string with two fingers?
Yeah.
You could. I usually use that technique when I'm trying to play one string. It's kind of like an alternating picking, kind of like if you were to take your guitar and do this, I'll do. Or you can do the same string. That's kind of the next step is after you're done with, so you basically you want to learn palm blocking using all of those index, use your second finger as well. You want to do that with palm blocking, but then you'd also want to do it with pick blocking. I'm going too fast. I'm playing slow. Same with the second finger. And then when you're done with that, then you learn alternating. So then you say, okay, thumb and first finger. And then when you're done with thumb and first finger. Yeah, I like that. And then you got to go back. Okay, and so the way you're playing it now, you're letting all the strings ring like, which can be a desired effect. Maybe you want to let all the strings of the chord ring. You want to hear that because that's what you want, trying to have a big wash. But you might not be trying to do that, and so you want to practice both ways: being able to let the strings ring, and then being able to choke them off with your fingertips. Just having one at a time. And I'll tell you, when I was learning how to do this, I had to go so freaking slow. It was just like, I had to be like, then I'd be like, okay. Or be like, sorry, the other camera's kind of on the here, so doesn't really know what it wants to do. But okay, so I'm going to write out the moves that we're going to learn. I know some of them we didn't go over, but I'll show them to you briefly. But this is going to be what your homework is. Let me switch this over real quick. Nope. There we go. All right. So you got move number 1 is just thumb. Move number 2 is just 1. Move number 3 is just 2. Move number 4 is thumb and 1. That was the alternating thumb and first finger. All right. So, and with all of these exercises, you're going to want to be able to just do it on 2 strings, you know, if you're alternating, or do it on whatever grip without going across the strings yet. You just be able to do it statically and where you feel comfortable with it. And I would say do it, you know, it doesn't have to be an exact number, but I would say do it 100 times static. Get it to where you feel like you can, like this is working. Your hands warmed up about that. Like that movement is no longer a foreign movement because you got to teach your fingers what to do. And I know you played a little dobro and some of these other things. So you're going to gain it a little quicker than most would, but at the same time, you know, being an electric instrument, the touch may be a little different. Yeah. All right. So now move number 5 is going to be 1 thumb. So any of these moves that you learn, you got to learn the opposite of that move. Because if you go thumb and 1, you might have to go 1 thumb. You got to learn to start each movement on the opposite finger. Oh, you guessed it. The next one, 1 and 2. Then you got the opposite of 1 and 2, which is 2 and 1. And then you got thumb and 2. And then we'll start back up here. And you got 2 and thumb. After that, that's all of our 2 finger moves. Now we got number 10. We got the forward roll. Thumb, 1 and 2. Right? And then what you got? These are going to be, there's a whole lot we can do once we add 3 in. And you're going to learn to start this on each finger. You're going to go 1, 2, thumb. And then here you've got, what is this? 2, thumb, 1. For 13, you've got so this is your forward roll. And then here's going to be your backwards roll. Two, 1 thumb, and then 1 thumb, 2, and then thumb, 2, 1. Got 15 moves to practice. backwards roll. And I'll take a picture of this, send it to you. But these are your 15 moves. And you got 3 ways to practice it. First, it's going to be static. Or I'm not going to write here. We'll just do like this. 3 ways to practice it. Static, across, so this is like step 1. Do it by this way, and then when you feel comfortable with whatever that move is, then try to take it across and back, and try to keep it in time. You know, if you're getting hung up on the strings, that's when you know you got to slow it back down. And then you can let it ring. Or you could say choke it down, or play it short. Keep the notes short. And then the last one, I guess I'll write it over here, is you can palm mute it, or you can pick mute. If that makes sense. So you got number 3, number 1, and number 2. I might rewrite that for you so it's a little cleaner. But those are kind of the 3 different variations. And as you can imagine, with all 15 of these exercises, you know, it probably seemed like when we were doing this is all very simple stuff. You know, like, oh, yeah, we just take this, go across. But you'd want to be able to practice it where, okay, I'm going to go across with the thumb, and then, you know, do it as a palm mute. You know, and here's another thing, is with each of these, this is alternating, thumb and then 1. But you can do the same thing where you just play thumb and 1 together, or you just play thumb and 2 together and go all the way up and back, you know, so that you start to end up with like endless possibilities. But I think if we start with this, and then next week I'll show you some different grips for major chords and minor chords, and we'll start to take a look at some of the we'll probably start by looking at some Hank songs, just because when you learn what Don was up to and you learn what Jerry Bird was up to, it starts to make a little more sense. Uh-oh, I'm all over the place. Yeah, this stuff gets a little tricky to fool with here. There I am. Let's see. Let's remove that. There we are. At any rate, that's the homework. I'll rewrite that and I'll shoot you a message with that so you have it. Is there any questions about this stuff that you want to go over, or is this the kind of thing that pretty much makes sense?
Y'all, I'll just figure it out on the like thumb 1 2 or 1 thumb 2, like back rolls and forward rolls.
Yeah, I think honestly that's the best way. Is like I could sit here on the camera with you and like we could try to do it, but you're gonna figure out which thing is gonna hang you up. Like with each of those, you're gonna be like, wait a minute, in order for me to pick block this, I'm gonna have to do some weird thing. And my goal would rather be like you to just get in there and just try to figure it out. And then next week when we meet up, you'd be like, hey, look, this is the only way I can get this to work is to do this. Is this okay? Should I be doing it like this? Hey, I worked on these and I couldn't figure out when it was like a backwards roll, I couldn't quite figure it out. That I think that's where we kind of want to get to is like, you just get in there and see what you can figure out based on your current experience and what you've been able to get do in the past. And then if you start getting hung up somewhere, then that's where you could either just send me a message and I can, if it's a big hump in between now and next week, or if it's just the kind of thing where it's a smaller detail and you're just curious about it, you can just ask me next week when we go over it.
All right.
Cool. Anything else?
That's it right now.
All right. Well, cool. If you're figuring out your positions and your keys, and you want to, if this is like, I would say if you feel like this is too easy for you, do it where you do it in whatever key you do it in on the first neck, immediately jump to the next neck and go to the right key. Force yourself to like, okay, I'm doing it here. This is a C all the way across, and then go to the next neck and put the bar where it's supposed to go, and then go to the next neck and put the bar where it's supposed to go. If that's too easy for you, do the exercise, stay on the same neck. It'd be the kind of thing where it's like, let's say you get to where you're doing the forward rolls all the way across. Then go to the 4 chord. I'm letting it ring on all that one, but it'd be like, okay, take yourself, go through the chord progression of a song. And if you're just doing like 1, 4, 5, those are kind of your key positions you're going to try to be working on sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So, and granted, we're sort of just playing the whole tuning right now. We'll get to like sniping, whether it's major or minor, and like skipping certain strings. But right now, it doesn't really matter. It's more about training your finger. The tuning doesn't matter so much. It's just about training your hands and your fingers to like pick the way you want it to be picked. Somebody's just going to look at you and say, "Hey, go," when you're on the gig, and so you got to just be able to go, and you don't want your fingers to get hung up about that. Well, all right, boss. I'm gonna leave you to it. If you got any questions that come up afterwards, you got my number. Just shoot me a message.
Send me a chart of like the tunings too, for like
You want me to write them out and show them, like kind of like what we did?
Yeah.
But I'll okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
I'm always like on the steel guitar forum and like there's like 30 different tunings.
Dude, nobody explains it in a way that makes any kind of freaking sense. It's a problem. It's a problem. I'll try and do something like that. All right. Well, cool, Matt. The tuning thing, it might take me a minute to get that for you. But I can rewrite this other thing and shoot you a message with the exercises real quick.
All right.
All right. Have a good week, man.